Hey, welcome back. In today's lesson, we're going to take a look at and practice and talk about the particulars of now three-point perspective with an interior. We're going to create an interior and we're going to put boxes in that interior, and we're going to create a perspective drawing that is in bird's eye view. And we'll be looking down on the composition at about 27-degree head tilt. I just randomly picked 27. I thought, why not? Something a little bit different. And we're going to, again, like I said, we're going to create a room. We're going to do our setup, create the room, grid that room out without major scaling, which is nice with our measuring points. If you don't know about all the measuring points in three-point perspective, go back to a few lessons before and you can pick that up. And so what I have in front of you is my preparatory notes that I've done for this particular lesson. This is what our final drawing will look like to some degree. So we're going to do our setup, then we're going to create our gridded room, okay, use our measuring points, which automatically make this a all sides equal cube, and so we can really simply grid the walls and the floor out very nicely and come up with equal measurements, whatever we want to give our scale. These could be one tile equals 1 foot, 2 foot, etc. And then when we get that, we'll lay over a piece of tracing paper so we don't ruin our structure. If you mess up, you won't mess up, right? Of course not. But if you do, and don't you worry about messing up, that happens all the time, I mess up too. We'll put tracing paper over that, lay it over, so that we have a comprehensive final study of three-point perspective. And remember, we're going to be looking down now at 27 degrees. So we're going to come off that horizon line at 27 looking down. And so we're going to get that vertical vanishing point. So we won't have too many true verticals unless they're right on our center of vision. Keep that in mind. Okay, so that is that. Let me put this to the side so I can refer to it. And then we'll start our drawing. So I'll put this kind of in front of me and out of harm's way, I suppose, if you will, and we'll get going. Okay, so we'll start out with our normal, my normal size piece of paper, 18 by 24. Let me come out a little bit so that we can, there we go, my trusty remote control comes in handy. So I've got that working for me. Let's push this up a little bit so we can see all the paper. A little bit more. How about that? There we go. Okay, that'll help. Get that out of the way. And we're good to go. Okay, so let's go ahead now and put our horizon line measuring from the top. Let's go about 4 inches down from the top. So I'll measure 4 inches down, put a mark there, and I'll go ahead and come all the way across here at 4 inches. So there's the horizon line right there. Okay, so there's our horizon line, and then of course we'll put our center of vision at 12. Since I'm 24 inches across, we'll put it halfway down. Now you could put it off center if you want. It gives you some more space on either side, but for now I'll just make it our center of vision, since that truly is our center of vision when we're viewing. So I'll grab my triangle over here so we can make that at 90 coming on down. Here we go, center of vision here and here. So we're going to do our setup, have a full formal setup with the cone so we know where our cone is. All right, so we have our center of vision, we have our horizon line here. This will be a 1-point vanishing point too, as well as the center point on the horizon line. Now we need to set 27 degrees. So I'll take my protractor. I like to set it very early. You could set it a little bit later, but it's harder to do. So I'll do it now. And so I'll come in a little bit if you're not familiar with this as much. Get in a little bit more, and I'll just find along here, setting it at 0 and then 90 here. From 0 to 90, come down at 20, 25, 26, 27, I'll make a mark. Little dot at 27, and I'll take the protractor away. And that gives me the line now that I can set up to find my vertical vanishing point and my vertical station point, but it also denotes, by the way, again, you've seen this before, the degree of head tilt. So there's 27 degrees right there, very nicely, 27 degrees. And so I want to set now in my couple things I want to talk about here. I'm going to pull out again here just a little. There we go. Okay. So I want a rather large cone. Okay. Preferably chocolate or vanilla, but no, you get the idea. Bad joke. I want a big cone. So the only way I can get a big cone in here is to pull our vertical station point as far back as possible, but yet still keep it on the paper. So you notice my vertical vanishing point is way down here. Remember, that's a 90-degree relationship. So I pull this 90-degree relationship as far out along my eye line as I can, okay? Until we get a bigger cone. Now, if you want it even bigger, you've got to go further. It may go off the paper. That's why for perspective studies, it's better rather to do them relatively small for the most part. Unless you have really big equipment, then it still gets cumbersome. And then you can always blow these up in size and scale when you get all the structures that you want, and then it becomes a little bit more freehand, a little bit freer, and you're still very, very accurate. So that takes care of that problem. So let me demonstrate what I just talked about more fully, so that makes hopefully complete sense to you. So our 90-degree relationship we have in our triangle here. Now remember, I want to keep it on the paper down here, so I'm going to set up my 90-degree triangle, my 90-degree angle along our angled line here for our vertical station point. You notice it's off the paper. It would go off the paper. So I bring it in just enough, and maybe just a little bit of then some, to pull it right in through there. So there's our 90-degree relationship right there, all the way down and over, and I'll stop along our center of vision line. That gives me a couple things. That gives me my vertical vanishing point, and it gives me right here, which will be my vertical station point, and remember, our eye line, our new eye line, pulled down at 27 degrees because we're off the horizon line. So remember, our head is tilted downward. We're in bird's eye view, and we're looking downward. So there's our eye line across there. I'll write that over here, BEV, bird's eye view, right at 27 degrees. So that becomes our vertical station point, right? Here's our little person right there with a shoulder here, shoulder, feet, little butt there too if we wanted. Okay, so we have that. Now remember, that's a 90-degree relationship right there. It's important. Now we can set in our cone. Since we have our VVP, our vertical station point, our center point here, which will also be 1 point if we want to do a 1 3-point box. So let's set in now our cone, and we need our 30-degree, 30, 60, 90 triangle. We pull it out of here, procure it, if you will. All right, so let's set in our first 30. We know how to should know how to do this already. It should be very, very simple. 30 degrees will pop out from our vertical station point right there, and then we'll come over. Now we're going to go, since we're at 27-degree tilt, we should go past the horizon line just a little bit. Yes, we will. Right there, and there we are. There's the limits of our cone. Now we can draw our cone in. So we've got a decent sized cone to work with. The cone is a superior way to work, especially when you want to control the amount of distortion that will occur in perspective if you get too far outside of the cone, or even within the cone, closer to its perimeter range, you will get some distortion. So composing becomes a little bit easier with that. Now, in the drawing itself that we're recreating from my notes, we're pulled out pretty far. We're omniscient. We can see this behind us, etc. in relationship to our paper. This is a lot of distortion here, way too much that we can take in. But we can see a greater range of, quite frankly, what we would normally draw in perspective. Ultimately, what you would do is probably crop into this pretty deep and you would crop in, once we put our boxes on there too, crop in a little bit deeper and draw from that. So again, this tinier image could be quote unquote a thumbnail sketch for a very larger study that you could directly draw from, even freehand from this drawing. I think that's very important to understand pretty clearly in our composition. Okay, so there we are. So now we're ready to get the rest of our setup located. And I tell you what, to be as accurate as possible, what I'll do is I'll give you the measurements. We'll start out getting the measurements of where the left vanishing point was. Now, when I did these notes earlier, they were more freehand, meaning, or more free form, where I just felt like whatever angle I wanted. But I'm going to give you the measurements a little bit. So from the center point here over to the left vanishing point, I have it at 6 inches. So that might help make our study closer to our finished drawing too as well. So that's easy. So from our center point here, just measure 6 inches here over to here, and we'll put down our left vanishing point. Now we don't need it on the other side because that'll get recreated once we finish out the setup. And we have 3 of our 4 parts of our setup that we need. We have our vertical station point, our vertical vanishing point, our left vanishing point, and the right vanishing point will fall in the same place as our study because it has to, it'll be locked in. So the first thing we need is a construction line here from the left vanishing point to the vertical vanishing point here, okay? Then remember we go through the eye line, new eye line center point at a right 90-degree angle from that construction line of our left vanishing point to our vertical vanishing point. Here we set it up, see nicely, it sits right through. Then that will flow through here at 90 degrees, a 90-degree relationship here all the way through that center point to our horizon line. There we go, and that gives us our RVP, or our right vanishing point. Now, we're going to need the rest of that setup, so let's draw a construction line from the right vanishing point through the vertical vanishing point. So we have that construction line set up, and then yes, you guessed it, we go 90-degree relationship back to the center point to the left vanishing point. So all we do there is we align that 90-degree triangle up through the left vanishing point, through the center point, along our construction line at a 90-degree angle, and then we draw that 90-degree line right through there. So we have our nice clean setup. So there we go, we have a good setup. Now what we need next, and let's see how accurate we were, that right vanishing point from our center point line in our study, our new study, is 5 3/4, and it should be pretty close over here. How close were we? A little bit different. Okay, not by much. By about 3/4 of an inch. Okay, which is fine. All right, our vertical vanishing point is a little bit, the reason why, do you want to know? It's a little bit deeper here. See the edge of the paper, ours is a little bit higher. That's why it's just a little bit different. Just in case you're like, hey, how come that's 1/4 or 1/2 inch off? That's why. Okay, so let us now get our measuring points in for our perfect room that we're going to be doing. So we need a perfect, basically a perfect cube. We will eliminate the left and right walls and the top wall so we can look in and see things more clearly. But we need, since we want that perfect room, we need measuring points to do that. All right, so if you have watched the prior videos, which I highly recommend before you do this one, this one is the next logical step. What I mean by that is, how did we get these 3 45-degree reference points? As a matter of fact, how did we get this one too as well? And then the one down here for 1.3 point. Those are the things we want to set up. Now, once you get your entire setup in, you don't have to think about it really anymore. It becomes so much more creative and more fluid than in 1 point and 2 point where you're scaling a little bit. that might take a little bit longer. All right, so let's do that now. Let's get our setup going. So the first thing we want is, remember, we have to swing. We have to swing some vertical station points. So you gotta have your scratch piece of paper, and actually allow me to get a better one. So I'll step off camera for a moment. Now I'm back, and I'll get a better scratch piece of paper. And so the first thing, again, we want to do is swing our vertical station point from our center point on our horizon line. Swing that distance, keep it the same, all the way to our center of vision. So let's do that now with some marks. So I'll line up here the two marks. Okay, here's our center point, here's our vertical station point, and we're just going to swing those two over along our center of vision line. Okay, then we'll demarcate that point right there. There we go, right there. Remember, we won't be done, but I'm going to do all my swinging parts first. I'm going to do all my swinging first, my swing dancing. Okay, that would not be pretty, but you get the idea. So that was our first swing. Our second swing is from the vertical vanishing point and the vertical station point. We're going to swing that distance over, okay, to our first construction line from our right vanishing point that goes to the center point of our eye line. Okay, this is nothing new. You know this already if you've been working along with me. Okay, so we get our distances from our vertical vanishing point, vertical station point, then we swing over to right there from our vertical vanishing point to our construction line here. That from the right vanishing point that goes through our center line, then we'll make a nice mark here, and then we'll keep going. Don't stop, keep going until we get to the left vanishing point construction line through the center of vision, in eye line, right in there. That's what I mean by swinging, right there. So we don't have to remeasure every time. So we swung, and there we are there. Okay, so we've got three demarcations. So I can put my scratch paper away for now. That we want, okay? We're not finished. So first we have to swing, which we've done. We've recreated those distances from here to there, okay? Then from here over to there, and then we swung over to there. Now we need to project 90 degrees, okay, to get our 90-degree construction so we can project at 45. I know, that's a lot. I'm with you. Okay, so get my 90-degree angle right here. So we need to project at 90 now, a 90-degree angle, so we can project back at 45. That seems counterintuitive. 90 then 45, think of it that way. So watch this. So from the first demarcation down here, I line up the tip of my 90-degree triangle, and then I line it up with my left vanishing point and my right vanishing point as tight as I can. About right in through there. They fit pretty good. Right in through there. That gives me that 90-degree construction here. I'm going to do it in red so you can see it better. Right here. See that turn? That's what we want. Right there. That 90-degree construction. Okay? That's our first job. Right in through there. Now let's do the other ones first, and then we'll project our 45s. So remember, we swung our measurements. We swing first. Then we project at 90. That's a 90-degree angle. We project our 90s from our point that we made, and then we'll find our 45s. So our next 90 that we're going to construct is from our second point here. Tip of the 90-degree triangle against that point, align it up with left vanishing point and the vertical vanishing point here, best you can. They fit fairly snug, so you kind of have to adjust a little bit best you can. Get as close as you can, okay? Give or take a 1/16 of an inch or a 32nd. That's okay. Right in through here, there's our 90-degree construction. That's what I mean by developing that 90-degree construction. Right there. There we go. Okay, so now we have two. We need one more for right here. So we take our point. This is probably the most difficult part when I was a student. I'm like, what? No, wait a minute. What do I do? If you do this often enough, if you can commit this to memory, it becomes second nature. It really does. It's not anywhere near as hard. Notice we're not doing any equations. If you're not very mathematically oriented like I wasn't as a student, probably a little bit better now, but we're not memorizing any theorems or a squared plus b squared equals c squared. None of that. It's just visual relationship, 90-degree triangulation. So from this point, right, we line up from the right vanishing point, the vertical vanishing point down below. They're snug. Get them as tight as you can, best you can. See how mine's a little bit askew. It's about right there is fine, totally fine. 90-degree construction. So there's our 90-degree, our three 90-degree constructions. Okay, right through there. Now, the reason why we need those 90-degree constructions is, again, remember, we have to now project at 45 from that center point out to the horizon line, okay, and out to the construction lines for left and right vanishing point along these lines. I know it's a lot. Here we go. I'll show you why. Now, we take our 45-degree angle of our 90-45. We align it in the corner here of our point along that construction line. Okay. Align it to the left vanishing point, or it could have been the right vanishing point, either way. Then we project back to the horizon line. And when we get to the horizon line, we stop, make a mark there. It will be slightly different from the center point there, and that's our first 45-degree reference point right there. So that's a big one. So I put a dot there, and then I circle it to demarcate that we're going to use that. The rest of them are just setup constructions. Okay, now we need our next projection from this 45-degree construction, or 90-degree construction. We want to go at 45. So here's my 45-degree angle. I align it at the tip back to the left vanishing point. And it could be flipped the other way. You could do it like this if you want. But you would just align the tip down at the vertical vanishing point. I'll do it that way just to show you. Okay? And once I get that alignment, then I project back. It's 45 degrees now to the construction line here, that left vanishing point right there. Put a little arrow there to show you I'm coming through. There's our reference plane. Excuse me, our 45-degree reference point. Let me demarcate those. 45 degrees here. Again, we projected 45-degree angle out to this construction line. That gives us that point. And then lastly, we do the same thing on the other 45-degree projection. Our 90-degree setup gives us an angle to work from. And then later on, if you don't even need two lines, you could just use one line that will suffice. You can shorthand that. So from that point, lining up with the vertical vanishing point to give you that 45 degrees, we'll project all the way over to our right vanishing point construction line. Not over here where our flap is, but right here is where we stop. And that's our reference point right there. It's our next 45-degree reference point, and there we go. Okay. Now we're nicely set in. Okay. So I've showed you also 1 point, 3 point, and we can set in those two measuring points as well if we need to. We might do a 1 point, 3 point form. Remember how to do that. The first one is, remember, we swing from the vertical station point. Remember, 1 point perspective. The station point is along the center vision line. Well, we need to recreate that. Well, we already have it, and I'll show you how we did that. Remember when we swung the vertical station point here from the center point, not the red measuring point, but from the center point to our vertical station point. Remember how we swung that over to here? There's our ground station point right there. Okay, so that makes this center point right off. It's a little bit, they're close, so just be careful. They're close there. That makes that center point a 1 point vanishing point. Now, for a 45-degree reference point, we set up our triangle along the center of vision against the station point. Remember that? Out to the horizon line. There's your 45-degree measuring point right there. For your 1 point, 3-point form, right? There's a 45-degree measuring point. There's a lot, right? There's quite a bit. And we have still one more because we're in 3-point. Remember that one? Remember, it is from now this distance. Instead of swinging in here, now we're going to swing all the way down at 90 degrees to the vertical vanishing point line. So we need a projection down below. So here I am way down here. Follow along with me. And so we're going to project a straight line from our vertical vanishing point out. And I'm just going to make mine all the way across the page until it goes off the paper down here. Okay? Now we need this distance from the vertical vanishing point here, vertical vanishing point. I'll put a little arrow so you can see it better. And the vertical station point here, we need that distance recreated. We need to swing it all the way down. Here's what it theoretically looks like. We're swinging it all the way down and over to here along our vertical vanishing point line projected across here. That's what happened. So I've got it aligned. There's my measurement. Make sure I see the line coming through. There it is. So there we are. I'll put a nice big dots. Then I'll make it in red because that becomes our 45-degree measuring point for our front plane for a 1.3-point box. Congratulations. If you got all that, you've got your entire setup. That's the hard, I think, kind of the hard part, and quite frankly, it's boring, right? Of course it is. It's not fun. These are not the most popular videos, which is fine, but I think they're some of the most important. If you're really a student of drawing and a student of the game and you're preparing a portfolio to get into college or NKU, which is obviously a college university, or you're in high school and you're learning, which I hope you are, this is important, big stuff. Anything that you do representationally in drawing and painting, the mechanics, the structure of that representational three-dimensional world that you're looking at can be quantified in perspective. It gives you that structure that, quite frankly, I think you're going to want. Okay, so there's our setup. So I'll put my measuring paper away. I bid it adieu, which is good. We can bid that adieu. And now we can start in on the good stuff. I don't think it's any easier, but it's still the good stuff. So this room we want to recreate. We want to recreate this room structure. Think of it as a perfect cube, but then we knock the top off. We knock the front left plane, the front right plane, and what's left are the back left, back right, bottom, so that we can look into, think of it as a movie set. We have actors. There's some kind of action going on. We're going to keep it simple, but we're going into that particular action. So the first thing we want to create now is that cube relationship, and we might draw the entire cube, even though we're going to eliminate some parts very lightly until we get what we want. So bear with me, and we'll take off on that. And we want to make it perfect. So in my mind, the scale I came up with was you could either be 8 by 8 by 8 or 16 by 16 by 16, depending upon how I wanted to count out the units. If each unit equaled in my measurement system in the United States here is feet, and so I'm saying these are about a foot. Maybe in other parts of the world you're probably using the metric system, which everybody does except us. We're knuckleheads and behind. That's another story. These could be meters probably, and so it might be 1 meter, or each tile equals 2 meters. Double that. Whatever, you can do a lot of different things with scaling, but we didn't have to scale and measure these to find that. We could, with our measuring points, we knew that our 45-degree measuring points helped us take care of that. Okay, so let's set this to aside here now, and let's start to recreate what I was talking about. So what we can essentially do here is to recreate the front plane of the cube, even though we're going to eliminate it. I know that sounds a little bit strange, but that's kind of how I begin to think about it. So I'm thinking about now the front structure of a box or a cube. So let me draw that in so you'll see it. Now we're gonna keep it all underneath the horizon line since we're looking down on it 27 degrees. I think that's important. So I'm gonna put the front plane of the cube, I'm gonna put a nice bigger dot for now. It'll be about right here. I'm trying to follow my notes as best I can. About right here. So there's a pretty big dot. And I'm just going to project that to the vertical vanishing point. I'm going to draw a lighter line through that. Right through here, down and through there. Okay? So that has that. We have that. Now what I want to do is cut off that distance of that front angle of the cube about right, let's see in my notes, make it a little bit longer, maybe about right there. So that dot. So this line from here to here, make it a little bit darker. I don't want to make it too dark because we've got a lot of information to draw. So that's going to be the front corner of our cube. All right? Now, let's go ahead and project some 45-degree measuring lines so we know where we can create our perfect room cube, right? For, quite frankly, really quickly later on. Now, from this top part of our box, or our room, we want to project here through the 45-degree measuring point, right in through here and out. Okay, so we're coming through, I'll put an arrow in through there. Okay, that's going to be important. Let's do the same thing now on the other side, and that's going to become obvious in a moment. Right through here, 45 degrees and out. Over through there. That's important. We really don't need to do it through here because when the room comes together, it comes together and meets up and it already creates a 45-degree line through those corners. Now, what we need is to project depth from the top corner here back to the left vanishing point here, okay? And also from the bottom of our cube here and here. Bear with me, there's a lot of lines, so you got to be really careful, okay? Now, where this touches right here, there's your 45-degree measuring point. That means that in perspective, from this point back to the vertical vanishing point up and through to our convergence diminishment here, that gives us a perfect plane that will be equal here too as well in 3-point perspective. So what we're saying is this distance here is also equal to that distance there. That's what that 45-degree measuring point. So that gives us the left plane, if you will, of a perfect cube. Now, let's do it on the other side. If you need to refresh that, slow me down, watch that several times. So from the corner of our box, our cube, back to the right vanishing point to create our depth here. And also from the bottom of our box back to the right vanishing point. Not the 45-degree measuring point, but the right vanishing point. Here and over, okay? Right here, where our blue line goes to our 45-degree measuring point, where that bisects right there, that's where we know where to stop. And so now, from that line, we just go up through the vertical from the vertical vanishing point up, because we're in 3-point perspective, and we stop where it meets our diminishment line, okay, and we're good to go. Now we just have to finish out the cube. So from these two corners we go to opposite vanishing points, right? So from here we go back to the left vanishing point, okay, right through there. Follow along, there's a lot of lines, you have to be careful. This is where you can get into trouble. I could too. So from this corner back to our right vanishing point, we go from this corner back to our right vanishing point, and where it bisects right here, that's what we want, right there, this one. Be careful, find out which one it is. It's this one, from this point that went back to the left vanishing point where they touch. There it is right there. That's important, and you're going to find out why, is to finish our cube, we have to go from here. Actually, we'll finish it this way first. So from these two corners, we go to opposite vanishing points. From here, we go back to the left, overdraw a little bit. Here, back to the right. Here we go, and we're set up there. Okay, and we'll overdraw a little bit where they touch. This comes up from our back corner from our vertical vanishing point goes up, line it up nice and clean where they touch, and there we are, right there. Now we can test that out, see how good we did. So from this corner through our front corner through our back corner should line up and go through our 45-degree measuring point. See how we don't necessarily need that all the time, but there it is right there. So what we've got now, and let me come in because this is so important for you to judge against mine, is, and it gets confusing, I get it, but it's worth it in your mental development of space, is we've got a very light, perfect cube structure in 3-point perspective, okay, that we're going to start to take and get more concrete and delineate our room, to make our room. We're going to do this and we're going to grid this out so we can scale and say, hey, where are we at spatially if you want something really accurate? Sometimes you may want things like that. So we've got a generic room here so far, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to keep staying pulled in. There might miss some vanishing points, and that's okay, but I need you to see it deeper. I'm going to darken in some areas of our room so we can see it, things we're going to need, things you want to darken in just a little bit more. So this bottom line here we're going to need, okay? And we're going to need this bottom line to go darker so we can see it. Now I'm going to draw later on and use tracing paper. If you want to use tracing paper, great. If not, just keep it lighter because we're going to add the box information on later. And we're going to darken in this angle. Remember, we're going to remove the ceiling, and we're going to remove the left wall, front wall on the left, excuse me, right front wall, the left and right front wall, so we can see into our room a little bit better. You could probably keep the ceiling, but I'll keep it off just to make it easier. Okay, so this back corner will darken in right to there. Keep that nice and dark and clean, and we'll keep it nice and clean here and over and through. Okay, now I want a wall thickness. Notice this wall thickness here and here. Okay, so walls have a little bit of thickness. So let's give it just a thickness too as well. And I'm just going to guesstimate. I'll just make it about, let me come in further. And then I'll pull this down. And then I'll tell you where I'm aligning up my ruler just in case. Just remember, for all our verticals, remember it's always going to that vertical vanishing point. So always align your ruler down to that point if you get a little lost. But I think being closer into the drawing makes for a more successful teaching study, which is what we want, right? You want to learn. Okay, so let's make a little wall thickness. So I'm just going to pick a little spot here along this construction line, this diminishment line about right there. Seems reasonable. And then just from the vertical vanishing point, I'll come up here and then stop at that diminishment right there. And then tighten this up against that diminishment line to the left vanishing point right here to the left vanishing point. And that leaves me a little bit of space at the top. I need to go from the right vanishing point. It's going to be ever so slight since we're getting close to the horizon line. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. I'll just kind of guesstimate that distance. That's fine. It's probably about 1/2 foot in our scale. Right there. I'll tighten up that, and then from the vertical vanishing point down below, I'll come over and we'll tighten up and come up to our diminishment line right there. Okay. Make that a little bit tighter. If you overdraw too much sometimes, I want to make that cleaner. When I was in art school in LA at Art Center, we could not have any overlapping lines when we were drawing strong structural. It was that tough. So we had to be super accurate, which I'm glad we were. I'm a little bit more relaxed as a professor, so it's okay. So now we created that finishing diminishment. Now from that corner we go back to the left vanishing point all the way back. And where they meet, it's hard to see, they meet about right there. That's where our wall thickness is there at the top. Now remember, we eliminated the ceiling, okay? So what I'm going to do now is the parts of the cube that we drew before that we needed, that front part, I'm going to just lightly erase. I don't want them to get in the way and confuse you. We knew they were there, and we know they're there. They leave still a little bit of a vestige, a trace. Okay, and so that takes that off. In there. There we go. Okay, and then I'll come back and finish out this cone of my cone a little bit. It got a little bit erased away. Save the cone. There we go. Got it. Okay. So now we're kind of clean and good to go. Now let's start to grid out a little bit here. And we know that because we set up our cone, our measuring points, we know that we're already got some equal spacing. So we can just find our center points by our crossing X and grid that way, and then decide on what we want with our scale. That's really nice, just like I did here. So I'm probably going to divide this into 8 grids on all sides of the wall. You should know how to do this already. It's mostly 2 point. Just when you need the vertical, you go 3 point. So let's do that now. So we'll start with the floor, crossing X here and here. There we go. Now I think I'll come in a little bit even deeper if I can. Bring that down. There we go. Keep it nice and tight. All right, so there's our crossing X there. So we know that there's our center, so we can draw our first grid line through the left vanishing point here and over. And same thing from the right vanishing point through that space. I mean, you can get to the point where you only do 4 tiles, or you don't have to do tiles, but I like to reinforce the space in teaching so that it makes you really feel the contouring of that space. Okay, so we have that tile, and we can go ahead and just start doing the walls too from that center point, from the vertical vanishing point down below, right? Come up through this point here up to the front edge of the left wall, okay? And we can do the same thing over here. There we go. So we come up there, and we're good to go there. Okay, we've got that. Now let's continue to create more at the bottom. So we've already got one X here, so we can draw another one. Crossing X right through there, we'll find that center point. That will take care of a lot for us. So from that point, from the right vanishing point through, okay, we've got that. Let's do the same thing over here. We have this crossing X point, and now we need this crossing X over here. Just follow your lines from the right vanishing point through that center point over, okay? So now we have a series of kind of larger, bigger tiles right in through there, okay? Now from that center point, we can come over from the left vanishing point through that center point line, which takes care of all of them because we're in perspective, right through there. There we come through. And then we can find, we need a crossing X line. We have this one over. Now we need this one. We can come from this corner back to the other corner. It's 45 degrees there. And we can come out from the left vanishing point over. And there we go. So now we have a set of 4 tiles to work with. You could keep it there if you want. I might even, maybe for this drawing, maybe we'll keep it a little bit simpler. It gets a little bit complex in through here. I kind of hesitate to, maybe we should, just to reinforce it. You need more scaling. I think we probably should, so I'll keep going and divide these one more time. So we've already got a center line here, centering X line. We'll do another one. We'll cross that through there. We'll find our next point, and then from the left vanishing point out and through here, find that division. Okay, and we do the same thing over here. Just find the one that takes in the center. It could have been the other one. And we cross that through, and we find our center point there. It's just a little tedious. It's really not hard though. Shouldn't be hard. You've done this before. There's another division. Here's a centering X line through here. Here we go. There's another point to work with. Left vanishing point. and through. There we go. And we find another centering X line here and here. There we go. There's another centering point, and we find our division. And we can draw in our structured line, darker, really much darker, to see that. You can keep your drawing much lighter than mine. Mine's got to show up on camera, so I got to be careful. Now we have a centering point here, so we can draw in our final tile. Once you have one, the whole entire row or column can be drawn. So there's another line through here. Remember, I'm just lining up from the right vanishing point through those centers. Okay. There's another crossing point there. So it's already done. So I can come through, draw another one. I mean, you can go smaller and smaller if you want, but we're getting cramped for space. So I don't have any more here, so I've got to recreate one. So crossing X here to there. Okay. Right in through, where am I? There I am. Right in through there, there's my next center point. Just try to keep your pencil sharp and be as accurate as possible. That's the name of the game. Right in through there. Okay. And now I want to create one more division. I need crossing X's. I'll just do the outside here. So we need one here, and we need one there. And it finds us our center right through there. Then we'll come from our right vanishing point through that wall, from the back wall here, right to that point, and there we go. So now we have a nice tiled floor. So now what we want to do is we want to recreate that, of course, on the left wall and also the right wall too. Well, okay, a little bit easier. First of all, let's take the easiest road. Let's go from these points where we cross over and they touch the wall. Those can be driven up, remember, from the vertical vanishing point. So down below the vertical vanishing point, line up your ruler through that vertical vanishing point, through this area to the front tip of our wall, front corner. Same thing through here. So I just kind of put my pencil on that corner, line up the edge of the ruler here, and then swing it over to my vertical vanishing point. Then I know I'm good to go. Right there. It's kind of a little technique, I guess. Hit that, abut that, move it over to the vertical vanishing point. There I'm going. We've already got that one. And you just finish this out. And there. Just kind of have to slow it down. And also there. And line it up. You really don't have to think about it. There we go. Okay. And let's do the same thing now on this side. I'm going to darken in, this is the corner one, so always darken in that one so we feel that crease of that spatial dimension where those two planes come together, right? That's important. And I got a little bit sloppy there. Let's take that out just a little. There we go. Time for a dusting. Dust it off. Okay. So let's see. Let's bring up our verticals here on the right wall plane. Remember, from the vertical vanishing point up to the front top of our wall, not the back, but the front part of our wall. So we have that top wall thickness that's important here, there, here, there. And then and there we go. Okay, so we have that. So I'm going to sharpen up here a little bit. And we finished out the vertical parts of our tile. So tiles don't take too long once you get the bottom. Now we need to start to split again to bring up those distances. Remember, we used to bring up from a corner point and we projected at 45 and scaled up. It's a little bit harder to do that in 3-point. We've already got the scaling. All we have to do is find our center axis. Remember, because we know these all sides are equal. It makes it really, really nice. So here's our corner. From this corner through this corner, okay, that's where we have crossing X here, and also there. So we find our crossing X. Mine's a little bit darker, right in through there. Okay, so that's our first center right there. We come through now. Pay attention. There's where that crease is right through there. That's why I made that a little bit darker so you can see that. There's our true center. So that's 4 units, and that's going to be 4 units. And I'm going to go ahead and do it on the other side. So from the right vanishing point through this point here, we'll come back over to here and through. There we go. Right, like that. Okay, so we have that division. So whatever I do on one side, I'll just transfer it to the other. It just kind of makes it easier. So, and we'll just do it opposite. How about that even? And we'll find the center of this big plane. So from here, crossing X to there, crossing X. Okay, there's our center right there. And then from the right vanishing point, we'll come through. Remember to start at the crease of the wall. The 2 planes come together right through there. And then we can reverse that from the left vanishing point through here. There we go. And we're good to go there. Okay. And we'll keep on going down below. We'll go to the opposite side again if you want. Crossing X. There's a lot of little lines. You have to be a detective. There's our center right there. From our left vanishing point. That's part of the process, is learning to ignore the lines that don't mean anything to you and use the ones that do. So there we go there. And now we've divided 4 spaces, and now we need to go a little bit further. Okay. All right, so instead of the whole thing, I'm just going to take one. So we have to make as many lines, and I'll just use this one. So this plane here, this big rectangular tile, I'll draw centering X here and here through the corners. There's the center. From that center point to the right vanishing point, being careful to start the plane crease through there, and I've got my first finishing tile. Then I can bring that over on the other side. And you're almost there with your 3-point perspective room interior. In what degree are we looking down again? Remember that, 27 degrees. How do you know? Because we set that up first. This is an accurate portrayal of pulling out your whole visual, your body, and looking down on a room. You might be at slightly a different floor, and then of course you could really crop in later on like you probably normally would be. So let's find another centering X. I'll maybe just do it this one here. You can do it in any of these, here and here. Any of those will do if you weren't sure. There's the center. From the right vanishing point through that plane there, through, makes another set of tiles. And then from the left vanishing point through that center, we'll make another set of tiles. There we go. And we'll do another one this time. Let's go over here. We can do it the opposite way. There's no set rule. Centering X, right? That's our easiest way to center. So we don't have to measure. And then from that point back to the left vanishing point, and I'll start in this front corner. Could do a little bit differently to the crease of the 2 planes coming together, and then just reverse that from the right vanishing point back over here. You've got that, and you're good to go. Okay, now we have one more to do, right? We have 6, and we need one more little tile down here. All right, so we come over, and we go down, crossing X. See how they meet up pretty nicely? Not bad. This one's probably a little bit smallish. I probably could have brought that down. Sometimes the thickness of my pencil, if you don't keep it sharp, it will kind of get on you a little bit. This row of tiles looks a little smallish, but not by whole much. It's the thickness of the pencil mostly right through there. There we go. There's the last bottom, and then from that corner, just go back from the left vanishing point and a line right in through there. Okay, there we go. Whew. All right, so look at that. So now you've got a 3-point room. Congratulations. Give yourself a round of applause, cheer, champagne, or if you don't drink, a glass of milk or whatever, mango juice or whatever it's going to be, right? You've got it. You've got a 3-point perspective room now, and I'm just going to kind of clean it up a little bit. The next step now will be to lay a piece of tracing paper over our drawing. We've just recreated that, I think better now. And we're going to lay a piece of clean tracing paper over, and then we're going to put 3-point boxes at 27 degrees down. Okay? And we might even put a figure here to the side. We'll do something like this. It might be a little bit different. So that's what's coming up. And then we can we get a good feeling of most of the size of these boxes. We can be very accurate if we keep them within and on the grids, or if we want them a little bit off a little bit. We know the relative size. Anything taller than the ceiling, we know it's going to be bigger than 8 feet, right? But we also know where a 6-foot figure would be. If we put a 6-foot figure or box, for instance, this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5 feet. And we know that because of the grids we have. So again, you could take this small drawing, blow this up 5 times the size, or 20 times. Maybe it's going to be a mural, but this is your plan for your mural of whatever you wanted. Okay? All right, so when I'm going to cut here, and then when I come back, I'm going to have a sheet of tracing paper laid over, and I'll show you how to do that really quickly if you're not sure, and then we'll start working on those boxes. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, so now I've got tracing paper on top of the drawing we just accomplished, the 3-point room at 27 degrees looking down at bird's eye view. So you can see where I've used the tape dots here to tape down the tracing paper, so that way we can lay it on top of the drawing and then work on some forms to put inside the room here. And that way, if in case you mess up, you don't get you don't ruin what you worked hard on here. Now you could do this in the Wacom Cintiq. You could take an image of this, scan it, or take a high-res JPEG and then plop it down into the Wacom Cintiq and work in Photoshop and work it that way too. Okay, so let me pull in the view here and let's get started. Let's put some forms in and finish out this drawing. Come in pretty deep there. There we go. Okay, so let's do 6, 7, maybe 8 boxes. Maybe we'll put a figure in it too as well. So we've got the setup for 1-point, 3-point boxes. We have a 45-degree referencing point here. And remember the one that we have out of screen way down, the vertical vanishing point down at the end there too as well. So I may have to pull out for that one. Probably let's do that first so I can pull out a little bit. So here we go out. Sorry about that. Ooh, there we go. And I'll come up a little bit. And there it is down below. Way down here where my finger is, down and through here. We can use that one as well for one of our planes. All right, so let's put a 1-point box form in our composition. Now we're set up in 2-point, 3-point. So our 1-point is going to be a little straight on, but we can still feel our scale pretty well here. I'm going to do the forms in red and then outline them in blue once we can darken them up. So with a 1-point, 2-point form, let's say we wanted about a 3-foot by 3-foot by 3-foot perfect box in our composition. I'll put it somewhere over here. Well, we know that each one of these units down below these tiles is 1 foot, right? And of course we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 across. Well, I can say 1, 2, and maybe 3 units. I can kind of go horizontally here to figure out what I want to get 3. So this is probably diagonally here. This is probably about 2.5 in perspective. So I'll put 3 is going to be just as a guide. I'm going to make the line about this long. That's roughly about 3, just an estimation. So maybe just a little bit longer than those tiles right through there. So about right in there. I know it's a little hard to see. Will be about roughly about 3 feet deep. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and drive back to the 1-point vanishing point. Now, just remember, it's not this 45-degree mark. It's our center point right there along our center of vision. Just be careful, okay, of that, because we're in 1-point, 3-point. So I'll draw diminishment back to that 1 point here and also here. Now, we need that 45-degree measuring point over here, right? So from this corner, this is very typical of 1-point perspective for now. We need to go back to the 45-degree measuring point here. And good, we kept it in the room on the floor. And so from that corner back to our 45-degree measuring point, where it bisects this diminishment along our right edge here, that's the end of the box and 3 feet in perspective. Right in through there, so I can tighten this up over in through and end up where our diminishment ends, right in through here. So let me darken that in for you a little bit so you can see that. Now that's a little bit light. It's the only difficulty with cameras is you have to draw a little bit darker for you to pick it up. So there we go. In that diagonal, let me draw that. Let me draw it in red. Remember, that was from our corner here back through to the 45-degree measuring point there to give us that perfect bottom of our box in perspective. Now we need to raise up the verticals of the box, right? So we can go from the vertical vanishing point, that's where we start, and then we'll just drive our verticals up here. I'm just going to overdraw a little bit because I don't know where to stop them, and that's why we have our 45-degree reference point down below here and also here. So I'm just driving them up to a point where it feels pretty good. Now, what we need for that 45-degree reference point way down here, make sure you have that, is through this corner, right? 45 degrees. So I line up my hard edge from that 45-degree referencing point. It's way down there, all the way through this corner right here, out, okay, until it meets the raised line for our left corner right there. Bingo, that's where I stopped, right there, okay? And that gives me the perfect equal plane for my raised plane in front here. So this is what we have right now. And now it's easy to finish out. So I'm gonna come back now and go in deeper. Okay, so we use that 45-degree referencing point for the floor of the box, and then we use this 45-degree referencing point for the top plane coming through the right corner back up to the left corner. It's 45 degrees it has to come through those corners for equal cubes. Now let me pull in here, and we can get in here tight, and you can see that a little bit better too as we go here. Right, there we go, and I'll come in a little bit deeper, get it really deep, keep the vanishing points in. We can use those a bit. There we go. Okay, all right, so now we can see nice and close up, and you can see again where I've driven this angle back to the 45-degree referencing point, and where it bisects this diminishment back to our 1-point vanishing point. That's our 45 degrees. That is our corner. Same thing here. Along here, this corner. So I brought up my edges to raise up. Remember, we're in 3-point, 1 point. And then from that 45-degree measuring point, which is way out and down there, right, through this corner up to where this height ends, where they touch, bisect, that's where I know to stop and then bring over my plane. So it's not quite straight, nor should it be. Now we can finish out this box, but because we've got enough information, so let's go back to our 1-point vanishing point for diminishment there, and also there, relatively light. I'm drawing it here and here. Okay, now let's bring up our heights here from our vertical vanishing point down below. I'll bring up my height here where it touches that diminishment there. We know where to stop. Here it's pretty tight, excuse me, and it's going to end vertical vanishing points. Oh, about right, and through there. We'll overdraw a little bit, and then we'll come over and get this corner edge, bring that on over. There we go, to there. Okay, and well, that's where we stop, right there. And there we go. That's our box. So let me tighten this up in red so you'll see it. Then we'll outline it in blue a little bit later when we get more boxes in, because we might stack something on top. So this is roughly a 3-foot by 3-foot box. It's an equal box for sure, but it's roughly about 3 about 3 feet, because we know that we have our scaling on the ground, and we've used it well enough now to know that it's roughly about 3 feet by 3 feet. But we know that each side is perfectly equal to one another, all 6 sides. Why? Because we used our 45-degree measuring points here, and then also the one from the vertical vanishing point too as well. So it makes it really pretty super easy, thank goodness. Okay, so let's put another box on top of it, okay? And like we're stacking a box, and let's make that box now 2.3 point, and we'll make it an equal box to I think as well. I think that'll work out pretty well. All right, so I'm gonna put the corner of the box about right here. I'll put a dot to tell you where I'm gonna put it on the surface of this first box. And now from the vertical vanishing point, I'm just gonna thrust a projection vertical up to a height, and maybe about right there for now, okay? Then I'm gonna project from, and I may not make it this high, I may make it about, let me not confuse you too much, let me take some of that off a little bit. So maybe about this high, where that dot is, right in through there and there. There's the front plane of our box. Remember, that's not quite a straight line because it's coming off the vertical vanishing point. Now I'm going to project back to my 45-degree measuring points here. Okay, 45-degree measuring point and 3-point perspective, so that we can get some idea now of where to stop our planes here and through there. Okay, so follow along. We make that a little bit darker. There's a lot to cover here. I know it gets a little confusing, so make sure we have that lined up. And through here, draw it a little bit darker, and there from that top corner. All right, now what we want is, when we drive back to the left vanishing point here, okay, I'll overdraw a little bit. Where that touches right there, that's where I know to bring up my true vertical, or not my true vertical, but the vertical from the vertical vanishing point, to make that a full equal planed box. So from there, now from the vertical vanishing point down below, I come up, okay, overdraw just a little bit, and then from this point, go back to the left vanishing point, and bingo, there I am right there with my left plane of my box. It'll be a perfect 3-point box in through there. Okay, now I'll thrust back from this bottom and top corner back to our right vanishing point. Make sure it's the RVP and not your 45-degree measuring point. Okay, right in through there, set that up where they bisect and touch, that 45-degree measuring point through here. That's where I know to stop, right through there. This one I can kind of overdraw a little bit through there. And then from this point up, from the vertical vanishing point to where they meet right there, bingo, there's the ending corner of the box on the right. And then it's very easy to go back to the left vanishing point, overdraw a little bit, right vanishing point. There we go. And if you wanted to double check to go through this corner, yep, to get to your 45-degree, look at that. Let's all go ahead and do it in blue one more time. A lot of times I don't do the top one. I just don't need it unless I start from the top first, or a plane like this first, and work my way down. But see how they go through right to the 45, so you know you're accurate in through there. So all of these planes are equal. Look how easy that was. I know it seems like a lot, but when you start to do this enough, you know what you're doing, and you read through all these lines. I get it, that's a little complex, no doubt. It's supposed to be complex, right? And so we have two forms. We have a 1.3 point, and then we have our normal 3-pointer. You could call it your 2.3 point as well. So I'll lay that down. Why don't I get out another piece of white paper? I'll be smart about this for a change, right? And then we'll take that, and then from time to time I'll just place it underneath, and that way you can see you can kind of see what you're doing with both, right? There we go. And I can take that out and you can see it back in our room. Now the end goal of this is not only as you're learning three-point perspective, but once you get this set up, is to kind of relax it, go to simple form, or if you want to do it very formal in a tiny thumbnail sketch. Look, this is about the size of my hand, and I'm not a very big guy, so my hand's really not that big. And so this is a tiny drawing. What if you wanted it mural size? Well, you could project this in a projector, or if you want it 3 times the size, you could freehand from that. You know that your freehand sketch from this is going to be pretty accurate if you get it really right, because this is. So those are things to think about. Okay, so we have that. Let's put another little thin box on the edge of our room here, and we'll make it 1 by 1 by 1, and we'll just put it right in here in this little corner right into here. Let me see if I can actually come in even more and still keep, yeah, I've got a little bit of room. How tight can we get it? About right there. Okay, so I'm going to put it right here on the ground in this little on this tile, and we'll just drive it up how tall we want it. So we can kind of get our bearings and say, okay, I'll just outline this tile, and that tells us that that's the dimension of this box is about 1 by 1. Now, what was the dimension of this box? We didn't really say. I didn't really say. Well, if you look at it, if you can kind of guesstimate, this was 3 by 3 by 3. This one's probably about 2 by 2 by 2. You could take these angles down to project them down to the ground, about right there, and sure enough, it's about 2 by 2 by 2. And this will be 1 by 1 by whatever height we want to make it. We can come along and say, all right, we could come along our wall and scale up. We can make it 6 feet tall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and say, okay, that's where we want to end it. We know this corner plane is here, so we just outline that in red. That's pretty easy, right? And then we can take, we know it's sitting against the wall, so we can darken this in a little bit right in through there. Now then, from this corner, we can come out from our right vanishing point, draw out a little bit, overdraw a little, because we know we're going to need some space, because it's not true vertical. And then from this point here, we go from our vertical vanishing point, line up our hard edge, VVP, come on up and out to this edge of the box. It gets a little bit wider as it comes up. And there's our 6 foot tall part of our box there, and we have to finish it out, obviously. Okay, and then we drive this point back to the left, vanishing point a little here, and then from our right vanishing point over through this corner, and then where we wind up ending our box, our 6 foot box, about right there in our corner. See how it's wider than it is down there because we're in slight 3-point at 27 degrees, and then from this point downward to our vertical vanishing point. Obviously it aligns with our corner right there because we're in 3-point, and voila, there we go. We have our third box. So what does that look like without the room grids in there? Right in through there. What we have there, you can keep testing that out. Okay, so we've got 5 more to go. We'll do 8 boxes, and then maybe we'll do a figure, maybe not. Maybe we'll do that for the next one. But coming up in the future, near future, within the next 2 months, will be perspective and the figure. And I'll do a series of drawings where we're looking at the figure in perspective, and that'll go in the figure section. So stay tuned for that. We'll look at different points of view with the figure and the model and that. So it's a busy time right now at the university as finals are nearing, and it's I'm surprised I can even get this done. Okay, so there's 3 boxes. Let's do 5 more. Let's start from the back and work our way front a little bit. Let's do a 2 by 2 box. We'll do it right here in this corner, so you can kind of demarcate what you want. Maybe we'll do 2 by 1 and not make it so symmetrical. So 2, right? And notice you do, some of these perfect boxes later on, if you align them to the grid floor, you won't even have to worry about your 45-degree measuring points. That's already there for you. So let's do 2 by 1, and so it's going to look like that. So we can start with our bottom plane of our box. We can align that here, okay, and there, and there, okay, and also there. And now we can bring up our verticals. How tall do we want to make it? Let's go ahead and make it as tall as the ceiling. So it's 1, we'll make it 7 actually, or 7.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and about a half is right in through there. If you really wanted to know what half was, to be truly accurate, right there, there's the center, and we could bring that over from the right vanishing point through that mark to be truly accurate right in through there. So there's 7.5. Right? That centering X idea really comes in handy, doesn't it? You'll use that all through perspective. So there's 7.5 there. I'm going to come from our front corner now through the vertical vanishing point, up, 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 kind of overdraw a little bit, and then tighten this up through the left vanishing point, through this corner here, and through, and over, and then it'll give us right there that angle. Okay, it's pretty easy, just classic 2-point there, and then we go to 3-point with this angle here. All right, and then we can go back to, from our front corner back to the right vanishing point. Okay, just make sure you're not using the measuring points, the right vanishing point. I'll overdraw a little bit, and then from this point, I'm gonna have to actually overdraw more. Kind of missed it there, right there, and then from this corner up, from the vertical vanishing point up, 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 meeting that corner, there we go there, and then back to the left vanishing point here, okay, and then from our left back corner back to the right vanishing point, and there we go. There's our 2 by 1 box, 2 units by 1 unit tall in our 3-point unit room. And it's 7.5 units tall, so it's 1 unit wide, 2 units long, I suppose, and then tall is 7.5 units tall. There we go. So we've got 4. We've got just 3 to go. There we go. So that's what that's looking like. We'll put that back on. We'll go to town here. Okay, so let's put another perfect box out here. Maybe we'll make it, let's see, 1, 2, 3 by 3 units here. 1, 2, 3 here. So we'll say in this corner, we'll say 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, and 3 units there. And so we'll put down on the ground the units here and here, and make that plane in perspective so it doesn't quite look like a perfect square. And that's the point in perspective use. There we go, is to take in an accounting of perspective and how that distorts a little bit our vision. So we'll bring this up. We know it's 3 tall, right? 3 by 3. So 1, 2, 3 units right there. Okay. So I can even draw that along the vertical vanishing point in the corner of our room, our wall, right in through there. Then we can bring our diminishment over from our left vanishing point over and through. Okay. I'll kind of overdraw a little bit. And then from this corner, we have to go up now from the vertical vanishing point up right there. Okay. That's where we stop, and there's our left plane of our box. And now we'll get our right plane. So I'll go from the front corner of the box back to the right vanishing points. There we go, and over. Okay. Maybe a little bit more. Something to note, I left a little space between this box and that, so each object has a little room to breathe. They can touch and butt, but they can't go in on each other. That would be a difficult physics problem. So from the vertical vanishing point from this corner up until it meets the front plane of our box and through here. Okay, remember we're getting a little bit further out of the cone, so that we're getting a little bit more distortion. So it's not quite a true looking. This one looks a little bit healthier, but it's also a 1.3 point more like a true all sides equal box. Then we'll come back to the wall, right in through here. Okay, bingo, stop, and then of course we know that along this back wall, there's the back of the box there, and I can finish this back corner if I wanted inside out. And there we go. There's our, I believe that's our fifth box. 1, 2, 3, 4. Our fifth box right in through there. So we're filling up this room decently now. So we've got 5 boxes, and all in 3-point perspective. We've got 1 point 3-point, and the rest are 3-point or 2-point 3-point. So let's do another 1 point 3-point. Let's put it on top of this one. We're kind of just doing the opposite of what we're doing there. Okay. Okay, so let's do that now by drawing the bottom front plane of the box, and we'll put it in along the first box here. I'm going to sharpen my pencil a little bit. It's getting a little dull. Come over here and sharpen and keep talking. So we're going to put this box, 1.3-point box, on top of this normal, I guess normative 3-point box, 2.3-point. So we've got our first plane, or line really, and this is the length of it. Then we're going to go back to the vanishing point, okay, right here. Just going to overdraw some, diminish through, right in through here, and right in through here. Now we need that 45-degree measuring point right over here. Don't forget about it. I'll do it in blue so we can see it. So from this corner, okay, we go back to that 45-degree reference point. Not the right vanishing point, but the 45-degree referencing point. Make sure you have that through this corner. Okay, we're coming through where it bisects right here, our diminishment line on the right. That's where we know to stop our box in 1 point. We've done this before in 1-point lessons, right there. Then we'll come on over and end it, and then there's, voila, there's the plane of our box right there. And also there we go. Now what we want is we want those verticals to come up. Okay, so we want those verticals to come on up, and we'll just start with these 2 front verticals here. I'll overdraw because we're going to make this a perfect box, so we need that 45-degree measuring point down below. I'm not going to pull out for this one. You just have to trust me that we're using it. Just make sure that you know where it is. Remember, it's that one way down along the vertical vanishing point, way down there. All right, so remember, from this corner, that's where we come up from as we line up to the vertical vanishing, the 45-degree measuring point, up through this point right here till it bisects this line right through there. And that's where we know to stop our box. And then we come on over, bingo, right there. And there is our equal plane to that which is laying down in 1 point. And then once you have that, everything else becomes pretty much a piece of cake. So go back to the vanishing point here, and also here, right? Just to diminish that through, this one here too as well. I'll thrust that diminishment there, overdraw just a little bit, and then we'll come up from this corner, the back right corner, from the vertical vanishing point, up, till it meets this diminishment, and it'll just tighten it up there, right? And then that tells me where I can come over, right here, bingo. There we go. Tighten that up a little bit, and there you go. Now if you want to get this back corner too as well, that's important. From our vertical vanishing point up, and then notice how they align nicely when we do it well. Okay, looking good there. There's number 6, so we'll put 2 little spaces here for 7 and 8 as well. Okay, so let's see, let's do another box, and let's look at it again. Whoops. before we go on to the last one, last two, excuse me. That's what we've got so far. And now, of course, they go right into the room, like so. And of course, there's the room. You can always kind of double check and see how that fits pretty nicely right in through there. So we're keeping it in the room, keeping those boxes in the room, doing pretty well there. Okay. All right, so let's do another box here. Let's put a 2x2 box here. And so we'll lay it down on the ground and demarcate it right here. So in this front plane, there we go. Now, one thing I'll say, if you're thinking about your scale, we said an 8 foot by 8 foot room, but what if you wanted to change it suddenly and said, you know, I wanted a bigger industrial size. Maybe this is a warehouse type arrangement. And so instead of 1 foot equals 1 tile, maybe 4 feet equaled 1 tile. What would that give you across? We have 8 tiles. That would be 32 feet then. This would be 32 by 32. Then this would be, each one of these, this would be 8 feet by 8 feet box. This would be very big. This would be about 28, 30 foot box. So you can always change the scale that way too as well. That would put a figure to for a figure size, human figure would only be about that tall. So this would make this a really big warehousey look kind of thing, if you wanted to. All right, so let's drive some verticals up here. So let's drive a vertical up here. Okay, and let's drive a vertical up here. Okay, like so. And let's drive a vertical up here, like so. Now we have a couple of options we can do. We can project back across here from what we say 2 by 2, 1, 2, and up and over here to get our diminishment. That's pretty easy, right in through there. Okay, or we could have projected 45 degrees up from the 45 degree measuring point through this back corner, right? And see how they also align. So there's a couple of different ways. That's how you know you're really being accurate. You can test your room, right? So there's using my 45 degree, but then when I use my room, okay, at 1, 2, because we want it 2 feet high, it also lines up there too as well. Look at that, it works pretty well. So you know you're working, you've got everything you want going on to give you perfect measurement. And that's why they're there, those tools. But we got the room from the 45 degree measuring point, so it's gonna have to work out. Okay, so go back to the right vanishing point from this corner out to the end of the box, right there. Then I'll overdraw. I overdrew a little bit, and then I'll tighten it up, darken that in, and then we'll go from here back to the left vanishing point some. Okay, and then back to the right vanishing point from this left back corner. Voila, there we go, good to go, and we're clean. And then we'll come down to the vertical vanishing point and on in, and there we go. Pretty nice there. So we've got box number, I believe number 7, and then we'll put one more in there. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we've got one more to put in our room, and then we'll outline it in blue, and maybe we could shade a little bit if you want, or maybe not, we'll see. We'll put a little box in between this space here. I see a little tile we can use. So this little tile here, I'll come in even more, and I think you understand where the vanishing points are if you're getting this pretty well. All right, so let's get into this little space here. I'll shade it in first, and then we'll build it from there. And it's its own little individual tile. There's other tiles we could use, but this seems to be very convenient compositionally. So I'll outline this a little bit so we can see it a little clearly. I love the super high def we're getting from the camera. This camera is not very big. It's a Sony, what is this camera? It's an AX100. That's for those of you that are interested in something like that. American dollars is about $2,000. The university bought it, so we get to use it. But it's a wonderful little product, and it gets you some very clear imagery. Let me move this around just a little bit. Okay, so There we go, we have that. Make sure we have a straight angle. Nothing worse than having an off angle when you're teaching. All right, so how tall do we want to make it? Well, maybe let's make it 6 foot. How do we do that? Well, all right, so we can project back to this wall from here. So just follow along with me. So from this corner, we know we want 1, 2, 3, and now we can count up. We want 6 high, so we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to put a bigger dot here, okay? And I'm going to just project a construction line out a little bit. Thrust it out a little bit here. And that tells me that from this corner, from the vertical vanishing point through this corner up to right where it meets that construction line, now we're at 6 foot tall. So we're cooking with gas there. Now we can go, we've already got this line, can come over, and so from this corner we can go from the vertical vanishing point up here to the back corner there. So there's our 6 foot plane. Okay. Now we can go, we can thrust back to our right vanishing point along that corner. I'll overdraw a little bit there. And then from this corner, from the vertical vanishing point, from this corner up to the edge end. So we're a 1 unit by 1 unit by 6 foot tall box there in the middle. Okay. And then we go back to the left vanishing point to clear that out, and then from the right vanishing point, we'll connect those two, and there we go. That pencil thickness got the best of me. It looks like it's a little bit longer right in through there, but it's really not. I was accurate, but a little sloppy. Okay, and so there we go. Now if I wanted to bring up that back corner, it's getting to be a lot of lines, but it would be right about there. Okay, so there is our 8 boxes in 3-point. We've got a couple of 1-point 3-points, this one and this one, and the rest are true, just how we think of 3-point perspective. Okay, so let me pull out just enough to look at everything that we've got. Let's outline this in a darker color. In blue, I'm going to do mine in blue. Then I might think we can get through this in another 5 or 6, 10 minutes and shade these a little bit, and we can be done with this lesson. The next one will be worm's eye view at about, what do I have in my notes, 33 degrees looking up. And we'll definitely put a figure in that one. Okay, so now once you've got this, your lines, if your lines are accurate, you can kind of whipsaw through, if you will, your lines and your forms here, here. Just only outline the true outer thicknesses and the inner lines that we see if it's an opaque box. We don't need the inside lines anymore. It gets too difficult to see, right? Like this inside line there. We can keep that kind of subdued. So right in through there. This is what I mean. Through there, through there. There we go. Craftsmanship is so key in anything that you do. Even if the craft is supposed to be sloppy, there's a methodology and a reason why sometimes, or splatter when you're painting or drawing later on. We haven't even gotten really anywhere near that in terms of these types of lessons, and they're not meant to. That's for advanced kind of sections later on. Spend some quality time, some practical tips with studying. I might do a video later on where it's just tips for drawing. Is draw for instruction, draw for learning, spend some quality time, and then also draw for yourself. You learn a lot when you're just making art. Wherever your level is, don't worry about messing up, but make art and use some of these new skills when you can. There's times when you don't use 3-point perspective, and times when you do, you want to be aware of it, but you don't want to be a slave to it. But make art for yourself and then come back and learn some. Make art, learn some, and that's how I learned. I learned as a kid, very young. It's probably 5 or 6 years old. I was starting out drawing, so I've been drawing 48, so I've been drawing for 45 years. Excuse me, 43 years. Let me get my math correct. Math was not my strong suit. Rest in peace, Stephen Hawking. And, you know, most of the time I was making art, and then I was studying and training in college. And I knew a lot already before I got to college. I knew a lot in high school. I had a great high school art teacher, Kathy Bradley, at North Mesquite High School in Mesquite, Texas, which was a suburb of Dallas. But there's a lot I didn't know. And so I studied technically too and acquired a lot of new skills. And then I was asked to make art a lot. And that's how I put those skills to use, and that reinforced that. So, you know, and one of those classes was linear perspective. A full meatloaf. I call it eating your vegetables or getting your meatloaf. It's your meat and potatoes or your meatloaf, and it's serious technical business learning this and applying it in an artful way that's not so rigid and technical. These are exercises to fulfill and to reinforce the learning in your visual brain so that when you make art, this is not really art that we're doing, you have the skills there to make better instinctive judgments on what it is that you're doing. All right, so I'm going to keep going here a couple more minutes. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but I wanted to get that across. So the big tip out of all that rambling on talking was to learn your craft, spend some quality time on it, daily, weekly, every other day, monthly, and then during all those interim times, make art for yourself. What kind of art? Make art that you like seeing, whatever that is, for now. And then at some point in time, this could be preparatory studies for college. If you're a parent out there and you have a kid that's precocious in art, get them into these videos. Go through all these videos and then make art too. But these can be preparatory exercises. I wish I'd known all these techniques before I got to school. It would be even better. But some I did, some I intuitively know, some I didn't, and that's okay too. That's what college is for. But college preparatory training. And I've taught kids as young as 14 or 15, and they can handle the material easily. It's not too early for them. They can handle the material for sure. And we've got 2 boxes. I'm finishing up. You can fast forward me if you're bored here. But what I'm winding up doing in here is just outlining the basically opaque structure in line of the box forms, and I might just shade them in really quickly so we can see them a little clear against all of this, and then wrap this lesson up. The next one's going to be worm's eye view at about 33 degrees with boxes, and then we'll definitely put a figure in that one. This one kind of get carried away without a figure, but it's okay. Here. And also there, and then last one here as well. And again, you want to make sure when you do this exercise with me, I took great pains not to have any of the boxes hitting, well, not hitting each other, but some are touching each other, but not overlapping. We can't mold one box into the other without some serious physics problems, or it's hard to, how can you make one box overlap and fit into another one easily? You could do that by building it, but that's not what we normally do in life. Okay, so there's our 8 boxes outlined. You can see how they're tighter now and a little bit darker, but you can see the underlying structure in red, right? So we see that. And we know that's accurate because it's aligned in our 3-point room. And then if we wanted to shade like 1, 2, 3-step shading very easily, if you get a little confused, you can do it this way. Let's say our light source is coming from the top left where my finger, like where my finger is, but out here above, and it's shooting down onto the boxes. So let's analyze it. So we're up here shooting down onto, that's going to make the top plane 0 light. That's going to make the left plane about a medium value and the right plane a little bit darker. Okay, so top is simple. 0. The second plane is 2, and I kind of like to just do them all the same because I know 3 is going to be darker than 2, so why not just do them all together? Got that all together, and I can even catch these two. That's how quick it can go. So I've got these two down below, and I missed a line. Did you catch that? I needed this one right here. There we go, because we see through that cleverly. Missed it. I was too busy running my mouth and not paying attention to my drawing. There we go. All right, and so plane number 2 can go a little bit darker. So we have 1, 2, 3 step shading in a very simple rudimentary kind of way. Here, and then also this plane here. There we go. Got that. And then 1, right? Top is 1. Left is 2, right is 3. There we go there. Same thing here. Work that pretty quick. That's 2. I'll do 3 across this way. So I'll start out with the same value as the number 2 plane and just get a little bit darker with number 3. And what's cool about these color pencils, you can see through the structure a little bit, so that still holds together kind of nicely. 1, 2, and then our third plane, and then if you wanted to use that abutting technique, which is nice, just take your ruler against that left edge and just kind of run it across. Keeps that edge clean, like so a little bit. There's 2. There's 2. Right, like so, and then I'll shade across this one, and that's 3. There we go. And this will be, since we only have 1, I'll just make it a 2, because the top plane is 0. Sometimes I'll shade diagonally. There we go. Like so, and then we have our last box over here. So that's a 2, right, and this is a 2. I'll just bring them all down together. It's pretty easy once you get it, and this can apply to everything. And then later on you can take all your understanding of light, value, edges, and contrasts and make these boxes really, really atmospheric if you wanted to. But the point is the perspective structure here. There we go, so there's plane 3. All right, so let's pull this paper out. We've got our 8 boxes now. We've set it inside our room. It sits in pretty nicely. So let's pull out a little bit and wrap it up. There we go. That's probably pretty good. So there we go. We have our bird's eye view at 27 degrees. So we know we're at 27. We had our setup. We set in our angle at 27 degrees, found our vertical vanishing point, left and right vanishing points, and then set and swung, constructed our 90 to project our 45 degrees. And we also had a 1.45 degree measuring point, as well as way down at the vertical vanishing point out across. And then we have our 8 foot by 8 foot room, or it could be 16 foot by 16 foot, or it could be bigger. You can set the dimensions of your tiles to figure out how large you truly want your room. And of course we used construction paper, or excuse me, tracing paper to layer our drawing. Of course you could use layers in Photoshop and use a Cintiq or a Wacom tablet if you want a smaller one to work these problems out. But it's this kind of training, this kind of learning that will expand your understanding of 3-point. And we're still kind of in a basic approach to it. Okay? All right, so the next lesson after this one will be worm's eye at 33 degrees, looking up to a room and some boxes and a figure. All right, I'll see you for that one then. Until then, take care out there and have a good one. Bye-bye.